The alien princess hugged me and whispered, "I finally found you." My human, I always missed her. Captain Marcus Chen looked out the window of his ship. As it approached Zephyria Prime, the planet was beautiful beyond words. Massive crystal towers reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. Purple and blue lights danced across the surface. 3 silver moons hung in the dark sky like giant pearls. "First time seeing a Zephyrian world, Captain?" asked his assistant, Lieutenant Sarah Park. Marcus nodded. "It's amazing. No wonder they think we're primitive." The human diplomatic ship landed at the main spaceport. Marcus straightened his formal blue uniform and checked his translation device one more time. This mission was important. Very important. Humanity needed allies in this part of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was the most powerful force here. They could be humanity's greatest friend or worst enemy. "Remember, sir," Sarah whispered as they walked down the ship's ramp, "don't look them directly in the eyes. It's considered rude in their culture." Marcus smiled. "I studied their customs for 6 months, Sarah. I think I can handle a formal dinner." The Zephyrian escort waited for them. They were tall, elegant beings with skin that seemed to glow with soft light. Their faces were beautiful, but cold. They wore flowing robes that changed color as they moved. "Welcome to Zephyria Prime, humans," said the lead escort. His voice sounded like music played through crystal. "I am Commander Vex High. The Royal Council waits for you." They traveled through the crystal city in a floating vehicle. Marcus watched everything with wide eyes. Zephyrian citizens glided through the air using some kind of energy field. Gardens grew in impossible spirals up the sides of buildings. Water flowed upward in streams that defied gravity. "How did they do that?" Marcus asked, pointing at the floating water. Commander Vex High looked surprised. "You do not know. It is simple stellar manipulation. We use the songs of the stars to bend reality." "Songs of the stars? Everything in the universe makes music, human. Your people simply cannot hear it." The royal palace was the most beautiful building Marcus had ever seen. It was made entirely of clear crystal that caught and reflected light in amazing patterns. Inside, the wall showed moving pictures of distant galaxies and nebulae. The grand dining hall was enormous. A long table stretched across the room, set with dishes that looked like they were made of liquid starlight. Dozens of Zephyrian nobles sat along the sides. At the head of the table sat the Emperor, a massive figure whose skin glowed brighter than the others. "Humans," the Emperor's voice filled the entire room. "You honor us with your presence. Please, sit." Marcus and his team took their places at the table. The Zephyrian nobles watched them with curious but distant expressions. Marcus could feel their thoughts. These primitive creatures, what could they possibly offer us? The feast began. The food was unlike anything Marcus had ever tasted. Some dishes seemed to be made of pure energy. Others tasted like the smell of rain on summer grass. The Zephyrians ate slowly and quietly, making soft musical sounds that seemed to be part of their conversation. "Tell us, Captain Chen," said the Emperor, "what can humanity offer the Zephyrian Empire?" Marcus had prepared for this question. "Your Majesty, humans are excellent at solving problems. We adapt quickly to new situations. We're good at building things and fixing things that are broken. We never give up when things get difficult." Some of the nobles made sounds that might have been laughter. One of them, a thin Zephyrian with silver skin, spoke up. "Humans are known for their wars and violence. How is this valuable to us?" "We fight when we have to," Marcus said carefully, "but we also know how to make peace. Humans believe that everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were yesterday." At the end of the table, someone had been listening quietly. Marcus looked over and saw her for the first time. She was younger than the other nobles, with skin that glowed like moonlight. Her eyes were large and deep blue, like looking into the ocean. When she looked at him, Marcus felt something strange. It was like she could see right into his thoughts. "Princess Lyrale," the Emperor said, noticing Marcus's gaze. "My daughter, an heir to the throne. She will learn much from these negotiations." "Princess." Lyrale stood gracefully. "Captain Chen, would you walk with me in the gardens after the feast? I would like to hear more about human culture." The other nobles looked surprised. Some seemed angry. The princess had never shown interest in other species before. "I would be honored, Your Highness," Marcus replied, after the formal dinner ended. Marcus followed Princess Lyrale through tall crystal doors into the palace gardens. The plants here were unlike anything on Earth. Some trees had leaves that glowed and sang softly in the wind. Flowers opened and closed as they walked past. "Following their movement, your people interest me, Captain," the princess said as they walked along a path made of smooth stones that glow with inner light. "Most species we meet want our technology or our power, but you speak of hope and second chances. These are not common ideas in the galaxy." "Really?" Marcus was surprised. "What do other species usually want? Resources, territory, weapons. The strong take from the weak. That is how the universe works." Marcus shook his head. "That's not how humans see it. We believe that everyone has something valuable to offer. The best solutions come when different people work together." Princess Lyrale stopped walking and turned to face him. "Show me something human. Something that explains your people." Marcus thought for a moment. Then he pulled out a small device from his pocket. It was an old music player that had belonged to his grandfather. "This is human music," he said, pressing a button. Soft piano music filled the air. It was an old song called Claire de Lune. The melody was simple, but beautiful, full of longing and hope. Princess Lyrale's eyes widened. "This is extraordinary. The emotional harmonics are so complex. How do humans create such intricate feelings with simple sound waves? We put our hearts into it," Marcus said simply. For the first time since he had arrived, the princess smiled. Her whole face lit up with genuine warmth. "I would like to learn more about human hearts, Captain Chen." As they continued walking through the magical gardens under the light of 3 moons, Marcus felt that something important had just begun. He didn't know what it was yet, but he could feel it changing both of them. The princess began to hum along with the human music, and somehow, impossibly, her voice made the melody even more beautiful than before. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first arrived on Zephyria Prime. The diplomatic talks were going well, but slowly. The Zephyrian Council needed time to discuss every small detail. Marcus didn't mind. It gave him more time to spend with Princess Lyrale. Every evening after the formal meetings, they would walk in the palace gardens. Marcus had started bringing different things from human culture to share with her. Books, music, small pieces of art made by children on Earth. The princess was fascinated by everything. "This drawing," she said, holding up a crayon picture made by a 6-year-old girl from New Tokyo. "It shows a family with different colored skin, different species, all holding hands under a rainbow. Why would a human child imagine such impossible unity?" Marcus smiled. "To human children, nothing is impossible. They believe that if you're kind to others, they'll be kind back. They think everyone can be friends if they just try." Princess Lyrale studied the drawing more closely. "Your people really believe this, even adults? The best of us do. We call it hope." The princess was quiet for a long moment. "Hope," she repeated slowly, in Zephyrian. "We have no word for this concept. We have expectation and calculation, but not hope. Hope is different," Marcus explained. "Hope means believing things can get better even when you have no proof they will. It means never giving up on someone, even when they've made mistakes." As the days passed, Princess Lyrale began to change. She started asking questions during the council meetings that surprised everyone. Questions about trade that would help both species grow stronger. Ideas about sharing knowledge instead of keeping secrets. The older nobles looked worried. Marcus was changing too. The princess had begun teaching him about Zephyrian abilities. She showed him how to listen for the stellar songs that her people use to communicate across great distances. "Close your eyes," she said one evening as they sat by a fountain made of liquid light. "Feel the energy around you. Everything in the universe is connected by invisible threads of music." Marcus tried, but felt nothing. "I can't hear anything." "Not with your ears," Princess Lyrale said softly. "With your heart. Humans have emotions stronger than any species we've ever met. Use those feelings." Marcus focused on his feelings. He thought about how peaceful he felt in these gardens, how happy he was to have found a friend so far from home, how much he cared about the princess and wanted her to be safe. Suddenly, he felt something, a warm tingling sensation, like gentle electricity flowing through his body, and with it came emotions that weren't his own. He could feel the princess's curiosity, her excitement, her growing affection for him. His eyes snapped open. I felt what you were feeling," Princess Lyrale gasped. "That should be impossible. No alien species has ever been able to share our emotional harmonics. Only Zephyrians can do this with each other." But it was real. Over the next few days, their connection grew stronger. Marcus could sense when the princess was sad or worried, even when she was in a different part of the palace. She could feel his determination and his growing concern about something he sensed was wrong. Because something was wrong, Marcus had noticed things during the council meetings. Certain nobles who whispered in corners and stopped talking when he approached. Strange looks passed between them. Energy readings from his ship's sensors showed unusual activity in parts of the palace where he wasn't allowed to go. "Lyrale," he said one evening. He had started using her name instead of her title. "I think some of your people are planning something." The princess had noticed too. There's a faction led by Duke Murdoch. They believe any contact with other species makes Zephyrians weak. They say our bloodline should remain pure. What will they do? I don't know. But my father's been acting strangely. He seems tired and confused during meetings. Yesterday he forgot my name. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. Something felt very wrong. Around midnight, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Red lights flashed in the crystal halls. Marcus grabbed his clothes and ran toward the emperor's chambers. He arrived to find chaos. Royal guards were running everywhere in the emperor's room. Marcus saw the worst sight of his life. The emperor lay still on his bed, his skin no longer glowing. With life, standing over the body was Duke Murdoch and 6 other noble conspirators. "Murderer!" Duke Murdoch pointed at Marcus. "Guards, the human has killed our emperor." "What? No." Marcus stepped backward. "I just got here." But the guards had already drawn their weapons. Energy blasts filled the air around Marcus. He rolled behind a crystal pillar as the room erupted in chaos through their emotional connection. Marcus felt Princess Lyrale's shock and terror from somewhere else in the palace. She was trying to reach him, but something was stopping her. The human used a poison unknown to our science, Duke Murdoch announced loudly. "This is why we should never have trusted these primitive creatures. They have murdered our beloved emperor in his sleep." Marcus knew he was trapped. More guards were coming. His only chance was to reach his ship. He pulled out his emergency beacon and sent a distress signal to his crew, fighting his way through crystal corridors. Marcus felt the princess's emotions growing stronger. She was angry now, furious at the conspiracy she was beginning to understand, and she was fighting. Back explosions echoed through the palace. Princess Lyrale was using everything Marcus had taught her about human tactics, creating diversions, making the conspirators think she was in 3 places at once. Marcus reached the spaceport just as his ship's engines started warming up, Sarah, and the crew had received a signal. But as he ran up the ramp, he saw Princess Lyrale fighting her way through a crowd of Duke Murdoch's soldiers. Their eyes met across the spaceport. Marcus felt her love, her fear for his safety, her determination to clear his name. She felt his promise that he would never stop looking for her. "Go," she shouted over the noise of battle. "I will find them. Truth, I will find you." As the ship lifted off, Marcus pressed his hand against the window. Far below, Princess Lyrale stood alone against the conspirators who had taken everything from them both. But across the vastness of space, their connection remained strong. They would find each other again. Somehow, they would make this right. 3 years had passed since that terrible night on Zephyria Prime. Marcus looked older now. His hair was longer, and he had scars on his hands from close calls with bounty hunters. He sat in a small cantina on Theta Station, a rough trading post. On the edge of known space, "Your Captain Chen," said a voice behind him. Marcus tensed and slowly turned around. A blue-skinned alien with 4 arms sat down across from him. Relax, human. I'm not here for the bounty. My name is Kex. I have information you need. Marcus kept his hand near his weapon. What kind of information? The kind that proves you didn't kill the Zephyrian Emperor for 3 years. Marcus had been running. Earth had declared him a terrorist. The Zephyrian Empire wanted him dead. Bounty hunters from 50 different species were looking for him, but he refused to give up. Every day, he searched for proof that Duke Murdoch had framed him. Talk. Marcus said. Kex slid a data chip across the table. Security footage from a cargo ship that was docked at Zephyria Prime the night the Emperor died. Look at timestamp 2347. Marcus plugged the chip into his scanner. The footage showed Duke Murdoch meeting with strange figures in dark robes. They were loading something into a transport ship, something that looked like weapons. Who are those people in the robes? Marcus asked. That's what makes this interesting, Kex replied. They're Void Seekers, an ancient death cult that most people think is just a myth, but they're real, and they've been working with Duke Murdoch for years. Marcus felt his heart racing. This was the first real lead he'd found in months. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, on Zephyria Prime, Princess Lyrale stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. She was no longer the curious young woman Marcus had known. Her eyes were harder now, filled with determination and hidden anger. My lady, said her personal guard, Captain Velter. General Vergen is waiting for you in the throne room. Lyrale's hands tightened on the balcony railing. General Vergen. Was the brutal warlord Duke Murdoch had chosen to be her husband? The wedding was planned for next month. It was a political marriage to unite the military factions. But Lyrale knew the real reason. Vergen was Duke Murdoch's puppet. Through this marriage, the Duke would control both the royal bloodline and the military. Tell the general I will be there shortly, she said. Captain Velter hesitated. My lady, perhaps you should reconsider. The resistance activities are becoming dangerous. If Duke Murdoch discovers what you've been doing, he won't, Lyrale said firmly. Our people deserve better than living under his lies. Over the past 3 years, Princess Lyrale had been secretly building a network of Zephyrians who still believed in her father's vision of cooperation with other species. She used everything Marcus had taught her about human tactics. Small groups working independently, hidden messages, quick strikes, and disappearing before the enemy could respond. Most importantly, she had learned to use hope as a weapon. She reminded her people that they didn't have to accept Duke Murdoch's rule forever. Change was possible if they worked together, but it was getting harder. Duke Murdoch's forces were getting suspicious, and every night, Lyrale felt Marcus's emotions through their impossible connection. His loneliness, his determination, his growing desperation to find the truth. Sometimes she could even sense where he was in the galaxy. Tonight, she felt something different, excitement. Marcus had found something important. Across space, Marcus was studying the data chip Kex had given him. The more he analyzed it, the more pieces of the puzzle came together. The Void Seekers weren't just helping Duke Murdoch, they were using him, and their plan was much bigger than just controlling the Zephyrian Empire. There's more, Kex said, ordering another drink. The Void Seekers have been manipulating conflicts all across this sector of the galaxy. They want a massive war between the Zephyrian Empire and the human colonies. Why? Ancient Zephyrian legends speak of the sleeping god that feeds on death and fear. The Void Seekers believe that if enough people die in war, they can wake up this god and gain its power. Marcus felt cold. How many people would have to die? Billions, maybe trillions. They want to turn the entire galaxy into a battlefield. Marcus thought about Princess Lyrale. Through their connection, he could feel her strength, but also her sadness. She was fighting the same enemy from the inside while he searched for proof from the outside. Where is their main base? Marcus asked. That's the bad news, Kex replied. Nobody knows. They operate from hidden ships and secret temples. But I heard rumors about an ancient temple ship somewhere in the Void Nebula. It's been lost for thousands of years. Marcus stood up. Then I guess I'm going to the Void Nebula. That's suicide, human. The nebula is filled with gravitational storms and space pirates. No one who goes in there ever comes back. Then I'll be the first. As Marcus prepared to leave the cantina, he felt a sudden surge of emotion through his connection with Princess Lyrale. She was in danger, big danger, on Zephyria Prime. Duke Murdoch had burst into Princess Lyrale's private chambers with a squad of guards. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out about your little rebellion?" he snarled. "I know about your secret meetings. I know about your weapons caches. I know everything." Princess Lyrale stood straight and proud. "My people will never accept your rule. They will when you publicly announce your loyalty to me tomorrow. You will marry General Vergen next week, and you will help me crush what's left of your pathetic resistance. If you refuse, I will execute every Zephyrian who has ever spoken against me, starting with your precious Captain Velter." Through the vast emptiness of space, Marcus felt Lyrale's fury and desperation. But he also felt something else, a sense of direction. She was somehow guiding him towards something important. He looked at his star charts and felt a strange pull toward a specific region of space, the Void Nebula, whatever was hidden there. Both he and Princess Lyrale were being drawn toward it. The final confrontation was coming. Marcus could feel it in his bones. Soon, very soon, he would see Princess Lyrale again. Marcus's ship shook violently as it entered the Void Nebula. The ancient space clouds were filled with deadly energy storms and floating debris from 1,000 dead civilizations. His instruments went crazy, spinning wildly before going completely dark. "This is madness," muttered Sarah, his loyal assistant who had stayed with him through 3 years of running. "We can't navigate in here." But Marcus closed his eyes and felt for Princess Lyrale's presence across the vast darkness. Their connection had grown stronger over the years. Now it was like a bright star pulling him forward through the chaos. "I know where to go," he said quietly. Deep in the nebula, they found it. The ancient temple ship was enormous, bigger than any space station Marcus had ever seen. It was shaped like a massive pyramid made of black crystal, covered in strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. Dark energy pulsed around it like an evil heartbeat. "What is that thing?" Sarah whispered. Marcus studied the readings on his scanner. "According to the legends Kex told me, it's the tomb ship of an ancient god. The Void Seekers have been trying to wake it up for thousands of years." As they got closer, Marcus saw hundreds of smaller ships docked around the temple. Void Seeker vessels from across the galaxy. Whatever they were planning, it was happening now. Meanwhile, on Zephyria Prime, Princess Lyrale sat in chains in her royal chambers. Duke Murdoch had locked her up after discovering her resistance activities. Tomorrow she would be forced to marry General Vergen in a ceremony that would make Duke Murdoch's control complete. But the Duke had made a mistake. He had left her with Captain Velter, believing the loyal guard would keep her secure. What he didn't know was that Velter was one of Lyrale's most trusted allies in the resistance. "My princess," Velter whispered, checking to make sure they were alone. "I intercepted a communication from the Void Seekers. They're planning something terrible." "What kind of terrible?" "In 3 days, they will attack Earth's capital city. They'll use weapons that look like Zephyrian technology. When Earth's leaders are dead, it will look like our empire started the war." Princess Lyrale's blood ran cold. Billions of innocent people would die in the war that followed. And Marcus was somewhere out there, walking into the center of it all. "We have to escape," she said. "We have to warn someone." "I brought these," Velter said, pulling out a set of lockpicks. "But once we leave this room, half the palace guard will be hunting us." Princess Lyrale smiled. It was a hard smile that would have surprised Marcus. 3 years of fighting a secret war had changed her. "Then we give them something else to worry about. An hour later, explosions rocked the palace. Princess Lyrale and her resistance fighters had attacked 3 different locations at once, using the guerrilla tactics Marcus had described to her years ago. While Duke Murdoch's forces ran around trying to stop the attacks, Lyrale and a small team escaped. "To the spaceport." "Where are we going, my lady?" asked Velter as they stole a fast scout ship. Lyrale closed her eyes and felt for Marcus's presence. She could sense him in the distance. "Surrounded by danger and darkness, to the Void Nebula." Marcus is there, and he's going to need help. Back at the temple ship, Marcus and Sarah had managed to sneak aboard through a damaged docking port. The inside was like walking through a nightmare. The hulls were covered in black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange whispers echoed from the walls. The air itself felt thick and evil. The central chamber should be at the heart of the ship, Marcus said, checking the rough map he had drawn from studying ancient Zephyrian texts. They moved carefully through corridors filled with Void-Seeker cultists. The cultists wore dark robes and masks that hid their faces. Some were human, some were Zephyrian. Some were species Marcus didn't recognize. All of them moved with the same creepy calm, like they were sleepwalking. In the central chamber, Marcus found something that made his heart stop. Duke Murdoch was there, but he wasn't in charge. He was kneeling before a massive altar made of black crystal. Around the altar, dozens of Void-Seeker leaders chanted in a language that sounded like screaming. And on the altar lay something that pulsed with terrible life. It looked like a heart made of dark stars, beating slowly as energy flowed into it from machines placed around the chamber. The god's heart, Marcus whispered. They're trying to wake it up. The high priest of the Void-Seekers raised his arms. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke in the common galactic language. Soon, the final ritual will begin. When the human leaders die, their fear and anger will feed our sleeping god. When the galaxy burns in war, our Lord will rise. From its ancient sleep, death and darkness will cover all the stars. Marcus realized he was too late to stop the attack on Earth. But maybe he could stop the god from waking up. He started placing explosive charges around the chamber's energy. Machines. Then he felt it, a familiar warmth in his mind. Princess Lyrale was here, somewhere on the ship. At that moment, explosions echoed through the temple ship. Lyrale and her team were attacking the docking bays, using their small force to create maximum chaos. The Void-Seekers ran to defend their ships, leaving the central chamber less guarded. Marcus felt Lyrale's determination through their connection. She was fighting her way toward him, taking down cultists with the combat skills she had learned during 3 years of resistance fighting. Sarah, Marcus said urgently, set these charges to blow in 10 minutes. I'm going to find the princess. Marcus, wait, Sarah called after him. But he was already running through the dark corridors, following the connection that had kept them together across impossible distances. The final battle was about to begin, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus and Princess Lyrale were fighting on the same side again. Marcus ran through the dark corridors of the temple ship as alarms blared all around him. The Void-Seekers were panicking. Their perfect plan was falling apart. Through his connection with Princess Lyrale, he could feel her getting closer with every step. Behind him, Sarah's voice crackled through his communication device. Marcus, the energy readings are going crazy. Whatever they're doing in that central chamber, it's working. Marcus felt it too. The ship was vibrating with terrible power. The god's heart was beating faster now, pulsing with dark energy that made the walls glow with evil light. He had to reach Lyrale before the Void-Seekers completed their ritual. He turned a corner and found himself face to face with 5 cultists in black robes. They raised their weapons, but Marcus was faster. 3 years of running from bounty hunters had made him quick and smart about fighting. He rolled behind a support beam as energy blasts filled the hallway. Then he heard the most beautiful sound in the galaxy. Princess Lyrale's voice, strong and fierce, echoing from somewhere nearby. For my father, for my people, for the truth. The sound of battle grew closer. Marcus fought his way through the cultists and ran toward Lyrale's voice. His heart was pounding with excitement and hope he hadn't felt in 3 years. He burst through a doorway into a large chamber where Princess Lyrale was fighting back to back, with Captain Velter against a dozen Void-Seekers. She moved like a warrior now, combining Zephyrian grace with human tactical thinking. Her skin glowed brighter than he remembered, and her eyes blazed with determination. When she saw him, everything else seemed to stop. Marcus, she whispered. He ran toward her, and she dropped her weapon and threw her arms around him. After 3 years of separation, 3 years of loneliness and danger, they were finally together again. I finally found you, my human, she whispered against his chest. I always missed her. Marcus held her tight, feeling complete for the first time since that terrible night on Zephyria Prime. I never stopped looking for you. Through their embrace, something amazing happened. The connection between them exploded with power. Light poured from their joined hands. And suddenly Marcus could see everything, not just Liralay's thoughts and feelings, but the thoughts and feelings of every living being in the galaxy. What's happening to us? Liralay gasped. The answer came not from Marcus, but from an ancient voice that seemed to speak from the stars themselves. It was the voice of the galaxy's first civilization, long dead but still watching over their children. You are the bridge, the voice said. The connection between all thinking species. Love without fear, understanding without judgment. This is what evolution truly means. Suddenly Marcus understood. The Void Seekers had been wrong about everything. The sleeping god wasn't a creature of death and darkness. It was the consciousness of the galaxy itself, waiting for the right moment to awaken, waiting for the beings who could truly understand each other across any barrier. The ritual. Vilter shouted. They're completing the ritual. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear the High Priest's voice, the human leaders. Are dead, Earth calls for war. The fear and anger of billions feeds our Dark Lord. Rise? Rise and bring eternal darkness. But instead of darkness, light began to pour through the temple ship. The connection between Marcus and Liralay was spreading, reaching out to touch every mind in the galaxy. Instead of feeding on fear and hatred, it transformed those feelings into understanding and hope. We have to get to the central chamber, Marcus said. We have to finish this. They fought their way through collapsing corridors as the temple ship shook apart around them. The Void Seekers' dark machines were exploding as pure light poured through them. Cultists threw down their weapons and ran in terror as their evil god dissolved into harmless stardust in the central chamber. They found Duke Murdoch and the High Priest trying desperately to control energies they didn't understand. The god's heart was glowing like a sun now, but instead of dark power, it pulsed with the warm light of life and love. You've ruined everything. The High Priest screamed at them. Thousands of years of planning. You never understood, Princess. Liralay said calmly. The galaxy doesn't want to die. It wants to live. It wants to grow. It wants all of us to work together. Duke Murdoch raised his weapon, but before he could fire, something incredible happened. The transformed energy from the god's heart reached him for the first time in his life. He felt what others felt. He experienced the pain he had caused, the fear he had spread, the hope he had tried to destroy. He dropped his weapon and fell to his knees, weeping. The light continued to spread across space. It reached Earth just as the human fleets were preparing for war. It touched the minds of admirals and soldiers, showing them that the attack had been a lie. Instead of hatred for Zephyrians, they felt understanding. On Zephyria Prime, the light reached every citizen. They felt the truth about their emperor's murder. They understood that humans weren't their enemies, but their friends across the entire galaxy. Barriers between species began to fall, not by force, but by choice. For the first time, every thinking being could feel what it was like to be someone else. Marcus and Princess Liralay stood together in the center of it all, their hands still glowing with the light of connection. What happens now? Marcus asked. Princess Liralay smiled. Now we teach the galaxy how to be friends. 6 months later, Marcus Chen and Princess Liralay stood before the First Galactic Unity Council. Representatives from 1,000 species had come together not to argue about territory or resources, but to share knowledge and art and dreams. Marcus was no longer a fugitive. Princess Liralay was no longer bound by duty to a throne she never wanted. They were the first humans Ephrian ambassadors to the new galactic consciousness, teaching others how to bridge any gap with understanding and love. And in the vast space between the stars, the galaxy itself hummed with contentment, knowing that its children had finally learned to sing together.